This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good morning, Tuscaloosa. Afternoon, West Alabama. How are you doing, everybody who's watching The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com? I am, of course, Joe Gaither. You are the listener and the viewer, and I appreciate you guys so much. You're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter at Joe Gaither6 or at BamaCentral. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon, The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Subscribe, rate, and review the show. Send it to a friend, and you can connect with us at Joe Gaither6 on all the social media machines. Send us your likes, comments, questions, queries, and complaints. We're going to have a fun Thursday morning. Hopefully everybody's up and at 'em, got everything rolling and getting ready for the weekend. We're going to talk about Alabama basketball defeating the Florida Gators 98-93 last night in Coleman Coliseum. Oh my God, how many different ways can this basketball team find itself winning a game? And we're going to talk about Eli Gold. We're going to talk about Alabama football and Eli Gold and the multiple different layers of dynamics that go along with Eli Gold. And then, of course, we're going to finish it up with news from EA Sports. EA Sports has now offered, it's the first day that players can opt in to college football, NCAA college football 2025, I guess is what it's going to be called. And so we'll talk about whether the opt-in package is good or not, and if you're excited about EA Sports NCAA Football 2025. But we're going to do all of that with our friend from Mobile, Michael Brauner. Down there, you can listen to him at 105.5, the Sound of Mobile app, and you can follow him on the Twitter machine at mbrauner, WNSP. Listen to him in the mornings now, shift from the afternoons to the mornings. You've upgraded. When you go to morning radio, they see you as more professional. So well done, Michael. You've made that move. And how are you? Happy Thursday.
Oh, I'm doing great, Joe. Happy to be on your show once again. It's always a pleasure. The morning schedule has been phenomenal. So, everything good down here in the 251.
You getting ready to, with the morning schedule to get, the season's changing. You're going to start taking advantage of the golf course a bit more.
I have been, once it got colder, I didn't really play for a couple of months there. I've started picking it up a little bit. The game's not where we want it to be, but
It never is.
It never is and never will be. So, that's the never ending, if one thing is good, something that was good previously goes out. So that, you'd probably know how that is better than anyone.
Absolutely. That's the way it works, man. That's the way it works. Well, we're hanging out with Michael Brauner, and it is Thursday. We're 3 weeks away from spring football getting going, and really 6 or 7 weeks away from A-Day. So everything's coming. Really, the calendar is just moving. Michael, why don't we start with last night though, and not football? Let's start with basketball, because last night was absolutely crazy. Alabama basketball makes 6 3-pointers in the night, 25%. Now, if you'd have told me from last Saturday, you beat Texas A&M 100-75, and you hit over 40% from the three, but you get your ass out rebounded by double digits. All right, if you had told me Alabama moves from that game and goes and wins the rebounding battle against Florida, but extremely the 3-point percentage, the 3-point make percentage falls significantly. It's the lowest 3-point make percentage in Coleman Coliseum this season, but the Tide's still able to win against a team who had won 7 out of their last 8. What did you just make from last night? How do you beat this team?
Yeah, if you reversed the rebounding total and then still told me that they shot 11% from 3 in the first half and 25 for the game, I would have said at that point they lost the rebounding battle, and were still able to find a way to win. They won the rebounding battle by about 10, but Florida was killing them on the glass in the first half, and it's like you said, it's hard to beat this team. It's hard to have you need to have a complete game. And, Alabama, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Arkansas game at home last year. The 3 balls just not falling, and, they find a way to be able to get it done. That's just what this team kind of does.
How important is Latrell Wrightsell to you after seeing him? It wasn't available last night. Anybody who's paying attention, he didn't play last night. He suffered a bit of a head injury, it seemed like, in practice on Monday. We'll see if he's available on Saturday for the Crimson Tide against Kentucky, but clearly missing Trelly Wrightsell.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, he's the best on-ball defender on the team. So that's probably the aspect he was most missed in. But, he's kind of come along as a shooter. It was kind of a wild quote this week. Nate Oates said something along the lines of, basically he's the best shooter he's ever coached, which, I don't know if that's accurate by any means, but I'll take Nate's word for it better than mine. I mean, in terms of just a pure stroke, he's phenomenal. It sounded like they were holding him out just as a precaution. So hopefully he's available to go on Saturday. I think he's a guy that, when Sears isn't making threes and really no one besides Sam Walters was making threes last night. I think Walters was 4 of 7. I think Grant Nelson didn't make one. So
Grant made one and Sears made one. So you had
Sears made the big one with like 5 minutes left.
Grant had one, Sears had one, Ryland had 2, and Sam had 4.
Ryland had the 3, I believe, on the 4 offensive rebound play. Yeah. So, if there's a play that epitomizes blue collar basketball, it was that. And I think that was in the first. I think that was 1 of 2 makes in the first half. So, yeah, definitely. When you get to March, you're gonna have to win when your best thing isn't working, and that's kind of exactly what they did last night. They still kind of got exposed on defense again, kind of like how everyone has been doing, but. They scored 98 points on a day where they shot 25% from 3. Obviously, having an overtime helps that. But it's going to be hard to put this team out in March. I kind of feel the same way about them now as I have all season. I could see this team making a wacky run, which I'm starting to believe a little bit more at this point. And I'm not going to be shocked if they lose in the first weekend. So, we all want it. We'll see what happens.
Well, if you read our friend Blake Byler over the last week, he did a bit of a deep dive on the analytics of Alabama basketball and how this team compares to the last 25 years of Ken Palm's information, and it really compares very favorably to 2015 Notre Dame. If I encourage everybody to check out BamaCentral.com and Blake Byler's kind of analytical approach to that. Alabama, one of the top offenses in the last 25 years, 127 points per game, number one, 127 points per 100 possessions. Excuse me, it's not points per game, it's points per possession, 1.27. What in the world? Nate Oates, you lose 3 assistants, you lose Brandon Miller, top 3 draft pick, you lose Noah Clowney, and then you just go out into the transfer portal and you get your island of misfit toys, bunch of nobody wanted you, Aaron Estrada at Hofstra, and I guess we'll take you, Grant Nelson and Charlie Wrightsell coming out from like these guys are not. None of these guys were really superstar players in college basketball last year. Maybe you could argue that Grant was at North Dakota State for his own level, but.
Estrada put up big numbers as well, but
yeah,
at Hofstra.
But to the chemistry, to get it all, not only to say, hey, Aaron Estrada, we want you and we're going to use you and we're going to accentuate your skill sets, but the chemistry. I mean, when you add one new piece, you add one new ingredient to your recipe, it changes things. But you're going to add 10? Is that what it was? You had 3 returning players, so 9. You added 9 pieces, really, 9 new ingredients, and the recipe obviously is still not done yet. The season is still not done yet, but it's smelling pretty good in the kitchen. Like, goodness gracious, Nate Oates, we need to get you on Food Network or something. He has just been incredible, and you see Ohio State make a little bit of a hire. You're kind of worried about Louisville. Are you concerned about holding on to Nate Oates in the future? That's kind of the big picture.
I'll get concerned a little bit when Tom Izzo finally hangs it up, but in terms of Louisville and Ohio State, or Louisville and Ohio State, not really at all. First of all, you mentioned Blake Byler, by the way. He does just a phenomenal job on Twitter in terms of providing radio people some fodder with stats and home records and all that. He's been absolutely killing it this year. So big thanks to Blake. But all that being said, so Nate Oates, no. In terms of Louisville, Ohio State, I'm really not concerned at all. I think Greg Byrne's going to continue to compensate him fairly. He should be getting a raise basically this is the best. It's not the best team he's had. I think that undoubtedly would be last year, but it's without a doubt the best coaching job he had. Last year we still
put last year's team on the floor and put this year's team on the floor. Obviously, you get duplicates of Mark Sears and Ryan Griffin, and we're just going to pretend that this is, hypothetical computer programs. Does this year's team? I don't know. I think they might beat them. The Bediako factor is the huge bonus for last year's team. You get the rim protection.
If you played that game 10 times, it might be 5-5 or 6-4, something like that. It's not as big of a gap as we certainly thought it was early in the season. And of course, it's time to move on from this talking point, but it's so easy to think every game. Imagine if this team had Charles Bediako. And I do genuinely feel bad for him. Like, obviously he got some bad advice and it's not working out for him at the next level. But, another year, I think certainly no one's going to argue would have helped in both his stock and, his career at the next level. It's a tough situation for Bediako. I'm going to still say last year's team was certainly better. Maybe if Rylan Griffin doesn't foul down 2 or 3 with 45 seconds left against San Diego State, maybe we have a different talking point about this team. Because I think had it not been San Diego State, Alabama wasn't going to beat UConn last year. I don't think they were going to win a national championship, but at least we could have said we've made it further than Auburn at that point.
Don't you think this year's team, I mean, obviously the rebounding and interior defense is a bit of an issue, but don't you, when you think about long-term runs in March, and most casual fans aren't even watching college basketball quite yet. They're waiting until that first weekend. Don't you think this year's team, given the deficiencies, and you just hit it on Bediako, but aren't they more capable, more equipped to make a deep run? I mean, that 2015 Notre Dame team that they're being compared to made it to the Elite Eight. If you go to the Elite Eight, you win the SEC regular season. This is Nate's best team, Michael. I mean, this team's equipped to do that, and this is his best team.
I think they are. I mean, it's semantics at this point. I think they are equipped to do more than Nate Oates has done at Alabama, but I mean, last year's team was equipped. Last year's team was up by 9 against San Diego State in the Sweet 16 and didn't close it out, and things didn't work out at the end of the game. Brandon Miller just chose the worst time of the season to play his worst game in an Alabama uniform. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that even if this team went to the Final Four, I think I would still say last year's team was more talented, but, results are more important than talent, so it is what it is there. I'm definitely excited to see what this team can do, but cautiously optimistic in that, who things could get dicey early, but all you got to do is be hot for 6 games. So, I mean, this team's figuring it out.
All you got to do.
Yeah, it sounds easier when you say it now, and then we'll get to March and you run into Marquette or whoever in the Sweet 16, and things get dicey. But I don't know. I feel good about the ceiling for this team. I don't feel so great about the floor. I'll give you an example. Last year, take the Maryland game in the Sweet 16. Obviously, it's a 8 or 9 seed, and you're a 1 seed at that point. I wasn't remote. We were both at that game in Birmingham. I wasn't remotely nervous that Alabama's not going to. I mean, I think pretty much most Alabama fans would have been in agreement. All right, we're going to handle Maryland fairly easily, and then the going gets real the next game. Whereas this year, I'm gonna be nervous going into a Sweet. Even if Alabama's a 2 seed and plays a 7-10 in the second round, it's gonna be I don't know.
Well, you're probably looking at that 2 or 3, and I'm really excited about it getting here. But before you get there, it's going to be 5 more games in the regular season. Alabama still with this 1-game lead. You go to Kentucky, you go to Ole Miss, you bring Tennessee into town, you bring Ole Miss and Arkansas into town. No, you don't have the home and home with Ole Miss. You go to Ole Miss, you go to Florida and Kentucky. That's right. Am I right? No,
they definitely go to Florida, and I don't.
Yeah. Ole Miss is not coming to Tuscaloosa. That's that's the extra game that I'm throwing in my head that doesn't exist. What do we think about going to Kentucky? Kentucky goes to Auburn, beats Auburn pretty handily, plays their best defensive game. They're going on two wins in a row. What was that? 3 wins in a row, and then they go to LSU last night and. Okay, I guess you consider LSU has been playing better because they just beat South Carolina. But what's Alabama going to be running into on Saturday in Big Blue Nation?
Yeah, for LSU to have been playing better is a pretty low bar based on the last 2 years. LSU basketball has been a mess. They are getting better, so credit to them, and that's a huge win against Kentucky last night. They're not a tournament team. I don't think anyone, barring a crazy run in the SEC tournament, it's not going to happen. All that being said, yeah, I don't know what to make of this Kentucky game. Before last night, I would have said, yeah, that's almost a scheduled loss. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Kind of in the way at Auburn a couple weeks ago was a scheduled loss if you were looking at the schedule in preseason. But now, I don't know. It's so weird in that, you felt not great about it after Kentucky beats Auburn. They're starting to come together. They're getting their guys back. Then they go and lose a game against LSU, and that's kind of an aberration. But they shot poorly against LSU. They're probably going to be hot on Saturday. It's, Nate Oates would tell you all about the law of averages on that.
ESPN's analytics already giving Alabama a 62% chance to win the game on Saturday. I'll just tell you where I sit from here. I don't feel good about that, especially with Kentucky and their recent results. I think they're probably going to have a really good performance on Saturday at home. Alabama, you go 4-1 over these last 4 or 5 games. You've won the SEC regular season for the third out of 5 years. Just absolutely wild to put Alabama basketball. You fire Avery Johnson. No, excuse me. Anthony Grant, Avery Johnson, because I always get Anthony and Avery mixed up. You fire Avery Johnson, and 5 years later, you've won 3 SEC championships. You've gone to what'll be 3 NCAA tournaments in a row because of COVID. You didn't have COVID. Just crazy to put Alabama basketball on this pedestal or in this realm. You've got Darian Reed and Aiden Sherrill. You got a top 10 class again coming into town. Michael, what's the next 5 years of Alabama basketball look like? Will Alabama be playing in a new arena in 5 years? Is it even important? Does Nate even care about that? As long as he's getting these 5-star recruits, use the money for the recruits instead of the bricks and mortar building. What's the next 5 years of Alabama basketball looking like?
Yeah, it's funny. I think last time I was on your show, that was one of the things we talked about at the end, and it kind of looked like it's not going to happen. But at this point, does it really matter? It's like you said, 27-1 over the last 2 years at Coleman Coliseum. Obviously, the Clemson loss this year stings, because it could just as easily be 28-0. I think 4-1 is a tall ask over the next 5, but we'll see what happens. As for the next 5 years, I don't know. Greg Byrne is spinning positive news, I guess, about the arena. I don't know. I'm kind of starting to develop like a fondness for Coleman Coliseum. You saw the ticket prices when Alabama went to Auburn this year. People like you and I were certainly priced out of even attempting to go to that one, and I think you'd probably see maybe not quite that, but similar in terms of just high demand, less supply, and the team. I think the team's going to continue to be good. So I am not going to be upset as I was a year ago if the arena didn't happen 5 years from now. Would I be for it? Yeah, sure. But, Alabama doesn't really lose games at Coleman Coliseum. It seems like, and we talked about this too, the crowd sizes. This was kind of right before SEC play started, I think, when it was kind of like, like the crowds are not good.
It always is in non-conference. That's what drives me bleeping nuts. November and December, it's like, who wants to be in Coleman Coliseum? It's like, you got a good basketball team right here.
Yeah. And I think the crowds during the SEC schedule have been as good or even better than they were last year. Certainly comparable at the very least. So I think that idea that, Alabama can't create a home court advantage in Coleman Coliseum, it's clearly dispelled. They don't lose games in Coleman Coliseum, and it gets really loud. It sounded even real. I know you were there last night. I'm sure your ears are still ringing there. It sounded loud on TV. Tickets were $5 last night. In hindsight, I'm regretting not driving up, but that's not something you'd ever see in a new arena. $5 tickets for an SEC game on a Wednesday night. You wouldn't see that again. So, yeah, I'm not going to be upset if the arena doesn't get built. I think Nate Oates is going to continue to recruit well, going to continue to win games, and we'll see what happens with that. But at this point, I'd say I'm neutral on the arena. I still hate the corner student section. I think everyone feels the same way about it. I can't remember what game it was that they allowed students to kind of wrap around. And
there was a Missouri or a South Carolina home game early in the first.
South Carolina.
Yeah, where you had a bad weather night and basically it was students and nobody else. So they left the doors open the whole time. And honestly, Michael, I know I'm not a fire marshal and I know I'll never be a fire marshal. And like, I don't understand the capacity. Leave those dadgum doors. If the student, like, I get the you got what 2,200 seats for the students, and they're all in that section. But leave the dadgum doors open. If a student sneaks in and sits in Billy Booster's seat, and Billy Booster happens to show up late, and okay, the student moves and Billy Booster gets his seat. But like, the restriction, the arena talk is fun, but I've kind of gotten over the arena talk because I don't know that you get a brand new arena. Is that going to change? Is that going to energize the average Alabama basketball fan? Not that you and me, like I'm watching every game because I really enjoy this program. I have for my whole life, but like, will it energize the average? Will it get your butt into I guess hypothetical new arena X against Eastern Kentucky on December 16th, where they're playing Eastern, or who else did they play this year that was terrible? Oh, you played Arkansas State. Brian Hodgson, former assistant coach, comes into town and there's no one there. And it's like, okay, if you're not going to come for the competition, come to say thanks, Brian Hodgson, for your last 3-4 years of service to the university. But they don't even do that. They don't even do that. And so will a new arena get people in November? Because you've got the January crowd. You've got the February crowd. And you've got the crowd when number 1 Houston comes to town last year and top 5 Baylor. When you get these big teams, shit, Clemson, they weren't ranked. And no one was in town. It was the Wednesday night, Tuesday night ACC SEC challenge. You're on national TV and no one comes. Is it about the arena? Is it about we just don't like basketball that much in Alabama? Or is it about, you get the TV time, 6 o'clock TV time is tough for the Birmingham crowd because we get off work at 5 and can't get there. Like, give me a bleep and break. The arena is fun. The new arena is fun talk, but I don't think it's the fix to let's take this, passion for this program from level 6 to level 8, 9, 10. I don't think the arena is the key to that. I think there's got to be something else to get the average West Alabamian, the average to say, you know what, it's Tuesday. I don't have anything to do tonight. I'm going to flip the basketball game on. I'm going to watch it from start to finish. I'm not just going to scroll on Twitter and watch 2 seconds of highlights and think, dang, Alabama basketball can't shoot their threes tonight. Like, watch the damn game on Wednesday night and go through the roller coaster of emotions, of fun, of, oh my gosh, you're going to win. Oh my gosh, you're going to lose. Oh my gosh, this team's so good. Oh my gosh, this team's so bad. And holy smokes, at the end of the 3 hours, we're all having fun and smiling. Is it as simple as building a new arena, or is there something else to take that support from level 6 to level 8, 9, 10?
Yeah, I think last night was the perfect example of that roller coaster that you kind of just brought up. I know I was I said when it got to a 9-point game with 5 minutes left, I think I may have audibly said the words, "This game is over," and then Alabama just goes on a 7-0 run. So yeah, the roller coaster of a basketball game is reality. As for I think the arena would solve that issue maybe for a year or two when there's excitement, about there's a new arena. Like, who cares who they're playing? Let's go watch. But yeah, long term, probably not. I mean, let's face reality here. Alabama is always going to be a football first school, and I think it's hard for
nothing wrong with that at all.
I think it's hard for a student to put themselves in the mindset. And this is just your regular everyday student, like not your super fanatic sport fan of every sport. I think it's hard for them to put themselves in the mindset of basketball mode when they're still like, I think about the fact that Alabama made the playoff and there was that month off. Like, no one's thinking, the common person is not really thinking about basketball. It's just reality. And it's probably always going to be a reality at Alabama. I wish that wasn't the case, but I talked to friends of mine that are still there, and I asked him, "Are you going to the game tonight?" This is before conference play started. He said, "No, why would I go? It's basically, a buy." So, yeah, I think that a new arena long-term probably doesn't solve that issue. The biggest reason I'm for the new arena is that I would and it's not like Coleman doesn't have a home court advantage. We've made that clear, and the record makes that clear. But the students wrapping around the court, man. It's hard to go to Auburn, lose by 18 when it's probably, ear-deafening loud, and the players or the fans legitimately affect the game, wrapping around the court in a Duke-style thing, and say, like, yeah, we don't really need that. Like, Coleman's fine. Like, Coleman is fine. Coleman is fine, and the home court advantage is fine. But it's hard not to be intrigued at the possibility of it being better in turn. And I know the logistics are difficult. I would be for keeping Coleman and completely overhauling the way they do the student section and maybe making renovations to Coleman, adding in bleachers on that lower level. And, as for Billy Booster, you just got to figure it out. That's a job for Greg Byrne. It's not a question I have to answer. It's a question Greg Byrne would have to answer. So, I would be for that, and I would be fine with that. And I do really like Coleman, but it's hard not to get excited about the possibility of a new arena. To your point, though, yeah, 2 years down the line of after its opening, it's probably the same case on a Tuesday night in December.
That's the frustrating aspect to me, is that you want to get the home court advantage, and you want to so get support for the program, but you're only going to show up for the Kentuckys, for the Auburn home games, for the you had South Carolina, you had Missouri in here, and last night you had Florida in here. And yes, it was a 6 o'clock tip, Joe. It's hard to get from Birmingham to give me a bleeping break. Like, tell your boss I'm leaving 15 minutes early. You got the lady singing the national anthem last night, and the arena is 70% full for an SEC game. Now, by the time she had finished the national anthem and everybody, the lights had come back up, and you looked around, you're like, okay, people are still coming in. So you had a good crowd last night. It was a good crowd in spurts. There was a lot of sitting on your hands, anxiety, nervous last night. I just don't know what it's going to take. I think the arena is it's not a cheap trick to like spur the passion, but I do think it's a trick just to get a cheap bump in the passion, and we'll have to kind of see. I don't know whether it's TV times or it's schedule even harder. Goodness gracious, Nate Oates, is that even possible? Like, he's scheduling his ass off to try to get you into the arena, and you're still not coming for non-conference games. So it's just I don't know. I think that talk is a little overblown. Let's get a new arena. It's going to change everything.
That whole argument is the one point that does make you a little bit concerned about long-term Nate Oates at Alabama. Because, we've discussed, reality is it's always going to be a football school. Like, would you rather coach at a quote-unquote basketball, like a Louisville? Like, I can see why that would be intriguing to him. At the least, he knows that Alabama is always going to be a quote unquote football first school. And he could win back-to-back national championships, and that's still going to be the case. The question is, can he accomplish what he wants to accomplish in college basketball more likely than he can at Alabama? And I don't think he can. I think he can accomplish everything at Alabama that he could, frankly, at any other program in the country. Has it happened yet? No. Is it coming? I think so.
That's what's so exciting about Coach Oates, is if you just keep recruiting at the same level, keep putting the math out there, eventually that formula is going to come up 100 for Alabama, and that's going to be a lot of fun. You want to talk about football? We've talked a lot of basketball. You want to talk a little football?
Sure.
Oh, my gosh. Do you like the drama that's going on in the last 30 hours in the Alabama football family?
Here's the thing. I wish it weren't drama.
Tell everybody what's happening for the people who are living under a rock.
So obviously, Eli Gold is out. Chris Stewart is in. Eli Gold did not go quietly about it, even though they wanted him to. He's saying it was anything but. He kind of even said, like, it wasn't particularly amicable, and it just – that's it. They decided to go in another direction, and Eli certainly could have said, I'm stepping down and Chris is stepping in, and no one would have questioned it at that point. We have both Chris and Eli on our station every week. We had Eli on this morning, actually, and
how'd that go for you?
He's not particularly happy. I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, it's 36 years. I certainly get the argument of he should be able to go out on his own terms, but here's the thing, man, and just no one with a straight face is going to sit there and tell you that Eli Gold is a better play-by-play announcer than Chris Stewart right now. And we all love Eli. I'm not saying anything negative about Eli, but it sounds like this was in the works for a few years now. Obviously, drama within the department rather, kind of delayed things, but it would be different if they didn't have someone so talented waiting in the wing. Chris Stewart is one of the best in the business. I mean, he is phenomenal. Football, basketball, whatever. I mean, obviously we've heard him longer for basketball than football, but he got his feet in the water last year and then doing the away games this year. It's like, and I hate to rag on Eli about it, but if you listen to
pause real quick. I want to play a game with you because you're getting to a point that I want to play with. Let's pretend you watched no football last year. None at all. You know what the game is, but you spent a year on Mars. All right, you're coming back and you're saying, what was the biggest play last year in Alabama football? And I want you to tell me if you can tell, if our listeners, if you, Michael Brauner, or our listeners, our viewers, if you spent an entire year away from Earth and you came back and said, what happened in Alabama football? I'm only going to give you 30 seconds of audio for the biggest play of the year. You tell me what happened, and this is what you get.
4th and goal from the 31-yard line. Here's the snap. Milrose stands in, lets everybody get downfield. Still standing. He throws into the end zone.
He caught it.
It's caught. It's caught by Isaiah Bond. Caught by Isaiah Bond in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. The Crimson Tide with 32 seconds to go in the ball game.
What happened right there? Who was on the field for Alabama? Was it what kind of formation was it for the Crimson Tide? How did Auburn line up? Was Auburn rushing anyone? Was Auburn rushing any players? Were they double teaming any receiver? You don't know what happened, Coach. I mean, Eli, you've got a mixture on the Alabama fan base of old school fans who I just love Eli Gold. And then you've got the fans who actually want to know what's actually happening in the game because I might be driving down Highway 82 and I can't watch the game today. Or I might be, working in the backyard with the wife and kids. I can't watch the game today. I want to know time and score, formation. I want to know tendencies. I want to that call sounded like he's on cough medicine. What's the nicest way to say it? It sounded subdued. It didn't sound genuine. It sounded forced. It sounded, I need to be excited about this, but I'm not. 4th and 31. Alabama win. I guess the deadgum Iron Bowl. Life on the line, Alabama. The season on the line. 4th and 31. You should be falling out of your deadgum chair. The booth you should be throwing things in your booth. But no, he's sitting there and is he a legend? Yes, you're a legend. You're absolutely a legend. And every time I've ever talked to him, he's always been absolutely kind to me. But there's a time for everything.
Yeah. The part that stings the most on the 4th and 31 is you just know Chris Stewart would have had this epic, classic. And I'm for Stewart's sake, I'm happy he was able to do the SEC championship in the Rose Bowl. Obviously, there wasn't that one icon. The SEC championship was phenomenal. We were both there, but there wasn't that one ridiculous play where all was lost and then it wasn't, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. And so that makes it sting a little more with specifically the 4th and 31 call. But yeah, it wasn't good. I mean, there's no other really way to say that. And, I maybe that's even sugarcoating it a little bit. It's unfortunate. It is reality. And someone just said Eli never goes over the top. I want my play-by-play announcer to go over the top with a play, not all the time, because then, it gets watered down a little bit.
I'll give you an over-the-top Eli Gold call that stays in my head all the time.
Please.
Right after the 2009 national championship win, you've won in the Rose Bowl. Eli Gold comes out. The Roses in this grand old stadium are once again crimson red. That was exciting. It was the first time in 17 years. That was excitement. That was his history. I can't think of you got Devontae Smith down this, like you get the 2nd and 26. A little, I guess it's an okay call. It's an okay call. I listened to that this morning. Like you just get so much more meat with Chris Stewart as far as who's on the field, what's been happening, and it's the same in basketball. You know where the guys are, what the time and score is, how many timeouts each team has, like the basics of football. Like you're a radio man, Eli. You know this. No one's watching. We need you to tell your information. And so it becomes, Michael, where do you balance you're a legend? Absolutely. You've been doing it since 1988, right? Oh, versus maybe you've kind of fallen off your game. I heard him yesterday on one of his dude, he was doing the media tour yesterday, telling his side of the story. And I guess still this morning, he was basically saying, yeah, the university did imply that there was performance-based reasoning for to make this decision. And like, look, you're not going to shove. I don't know. It just seems like the right place at the right time. And Eli, you got to have a little bit of awareness about yourself to say, you know what? I've been doing this since 1980. Well, longer than I had been alive. So
12 years before I was alive. Yeah.
Respect to you for that. But there's just a time and a place for everything. I think you're at the right time and at the right place for this transition. It's just unfortunate to me the way that Eli's maybe received it. You can be upset. Absolutely. You absolutely have a right to be angry, upset, unhappy. Absolutely. Feelings are valid. But don't urinate on the last 35 years of great work and a great relationship. I heard him yesterday talking about the university offered him a ticket package and parking packages and different perks and amenities, and he turned it all down. I wonder, Michael, and it sounded like he turned it all down in a bit of emotion. I wonder if 6 months from now, a year from now, if he will regret the way that he's gone about these last 40 hours.
Yeah, parking pass might be the biggest benefit in that whole thing. You know, getting free parking in Tuscaloosa for the game. Yeah, you asked where they find that balance between those two factors, and I guess yesterday you saw where they find that balance. I wish it wasn't the case. I don't know. It's hard to blame Eli, but again, like he had to hear. I'm sure he listened to Chris Stewart, and he actually like hasn't really mentioned Chris Stewart that I've heard during his farewell tour.
I don't know that they have I think they're very professional with one another. Yeah, but I'm not sure that they're close per se.
Yeah, no, I think that is probably accurate. Since 1988, it's like he could have just kind of said like, all right, I thank the university for 36 years and I'm going to hang it up now and go do other things.
And he could have stayed working. He says he's going to stay working, and that's great. You still can't work to as long as you want to. But it's just this insinuation, this breakup. Oh, Michael, how do you balance the little old ladies who are listening to Eli Gold because it's Eli Gold and it's Alabama football versus the maybe X's and O heads who want to know everything about, like, your play-by-play guy? It's a hard balance. I mean, we're being critical right now, but it is a very difficult job to balance about both telling what's going on and being entertaining and incorporating history and making
a job in this field. No doubt about it.
And so it's very challenging. But Michael, I'm seeing a lot of reaction social media wise. I'm never going to listen to Crimson Tide Sports Radio again. That Eli's gone. Oh, somebody, who can I email at Alabama to get mad? You're seeing petitions get signed. I mean, and it's natural emotion right after a decision. But again, if you were an administrative role, are you more interested in your play-by-play, your radio guy, making everyone feel good, on getting everybody to turn it on and making you feel Alabama football? Roll Tide. It just sounds like sweet honey. It just sounds like sweet tea. Or are you more interested in having your play-by-play guy say, or your radio broadcast say, you know what, Nick Saban on the 50-yard line talking to Lane Kiffin, they're shaking hands, they're walking away, and Lane Kiffin's laughing, and Nick Saban's shaking his head, like giving you the X's and O's. This is what's actually happening.
Yeah, clearly they lean the second one. And, it's not that Eli wasn't great for 30 years. He was. I mean, but I don't think there's no one with a straight face, like I said, can tell you that he hasn't lost a step in the last couple of, clearly he has. And it's reality. I mean, the man's 70 years old. He was sick. He's lost a step. It's not disingenuous or disrespectful to say it. And, maybe some people don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. And maybe if they didn't have someone like Chris Stewart waiting in the wings, maybe he gets the farewell tour or whatever you want to call it. I mean, he had said, I think it was Tony Sakalas tweeted this. He said something along the lines of he thought he was going to call games for another decade. Another decade? I mean, another decade? That's insane at that point.
They offered him to do a day as kind of a farewell. And do you not just – it sounds like the university offered him every extension that they could have offered him as we want to move in a different direction, but we want to treat you with respect as the best we can. You want this ticket package. You want to do a day. You want to be honored in this way and that way. And it sounds like Eli was just like, nope, you have stepped on my toes, and I'm upset now.
It's funny, at least I can only speak for our show and the comments in our app this morning. It was certainly yes, on the Sound of Mobile app, which you can download and listen to any of our content on 105.5, the first FM sports station in the country. All sports FM sport. Anyway, all that, the shameless plug there. What was funny? The people who were most upset about it and calling the university classless and saying, how do you justify something like this? They were all Auburn fans. They were all Auburn fans. Auburn, so they're just going to take any opportunity to, jump on Big Brother and say how could Alabama do something like this? And, the Wagee elbow is also a big discussion as of
suspended for one game, Mohamed Wagee.
So they were fired up about it this morning. The same regular commenters who
Let me ask you though about that loyalty factor, because I'm seeing that a lot. UA's not should being loyal to you. He worked here for 30-something years.
UA's being loyal. They're being loyal to a good product. I mean, that's where their loyalties lie. And frankly, the product the last couple of years has not been good. And it's unfortunate, but things come to an end and they make way for better things. And that's all this is. I think the dramatics are a bit much, frankly.
It's unfortunate to see the infighting in the Alabama football family. I guess maybe infighting is a little too strong, but just upsetness, discord in the Alabama football family.
This would never happen at Auburn. It's different down there. They're a family.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, they didn't get to experience. Oh, they had a different transition with their regular guys.
They had a tragedy there. But, Andy Bertram does a good job. But 20 years from now, it'll be time to get rid of Andy Bertram.
That's the way it goes. Ask Eli Gold. Were you going to let Nick Saban go all the way until he went 7-6, 2 or 3 years in a row? Yeah. And I don't think it was quite 7-6 radio, but it wasn't 12-0 radio. It wasn't 11-1 radio. It was a lot closer to 8-4, 7-5 radio. In that range. And Alabama football fans, and really the brand as a whole, I think deserves Chris Stewart, deserves really what Chris has brought to the table from a radio perspective.
I do wonder if Chris Stewart, and I actually have no knowledge of this situation. This is purely speculative. I do wonder if Chris Stewart had kind of been saying internally, listen, I'm gonna go elsewhere if you let him Eli go for as long as he wants, which apparently was another decade. I'm gonna just have to go. And at that, I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he's so talented that how could you blame him? But nobody loves Alabama more than Chris Stewart. I mean, he wanted this job and deserved this job more than anyone. So, I wish it wasn't going down that way, but it is. This will blow over by the time it's going to be this big topic. So once the dust settles on this, I think people will, for the most part, at least realize that it was time.
Absolutely. Well, the last comment that I have on this is what they should have done last year when they were bringing Eli Gold back. and they were doing those close scrimmages, and they had a couple close scrimmages that were basically like practice. They should have somehow, some way set up an NIL link to where Joe Gaither and Michael Brauner can pay your $10 to listen to Eli Gold call the fall scrimmage before you. And like, you know how many people would have fallen all over themselves to hear that broadcast. But, you know, it was during the time of the quarterback battle and kind of who's going to be the quarterback and how's Tommy Rees coming along with the offense. But I'm sure that if that idea was even explored, Nick Saban said, we ain't putting any of this out here.
Yeah, I think he would be the last person to allow somebody. What is interesting, though, is, you know, obviously the Eli factor is not a thing. I think Kalen DeBoer, I think there's going to be a lot more access, quote unquote, to the program where, you know, to which if he were the coach, maybe something like that would have been possible. I don't think it's going to be as shrouded in secrecy, which, you know, for people like us is certainly, and really the common fan is certainly a good thing. I think people are excited about that.
Absolutely. Spring practice, we're not going to be in front of the coach saying, tell me about this player we didn't see today and that player we didn't see today and this position group. It made it so hard. I mean, and Coach Saban had his reasons for it, but it made it very challenging to ask good questions when you didn't see anything at all in spring practice. I think it's going to be very different with Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, when we were back at Tide 109, I got sent to one of those open practices. You know, it's 10 minutes, and, you know, they purposely by design put the quarterbacks literally on the opposite end of the field. So I was using, you know, whatever camcorder we had at the station, and, you know, that was probably the shakiest footage ever because it was zoomed in from 150 yards away. So hopefully that's something like that. We can see some change on that front.
Let's talk about one more thing that we are experiencing changing in college athletics as news breaking today. EA Sports. EA Sports has now opened the door for all the college athletes who want to opt in to NCAA football 2025. I guess it's coming in June, July, somewhere around there, to get you ready for the new season. Obviously, all the video gamers are really excited. Michael, I haven't turned my PlayStation on in probably a year and a half or so. Maybe not that long, maybe just a year. But I might be purchasing NCAA 2025, especially if they end up with our friend Nick Saban on the cover, as they should, for at least an edition of the game. But you're seeing, golly, I don't want to say it's one side of the political spectrum or not, but it seems like one side of the political spectrum saying $600, that's not enough to be in the video game. $600, that's terrible value. And you say...
Yeah, it went up from 500, didn't it? If I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they came up an extra $100. I've actually been playing the old NCAA 14 on the 360 a little bit. As for whether the new game is going to require a new console or not, I won't be purchasing a new console. So I might be, you know, as they say, SOL on the new video game. But all that being said, yeah, I can kind of see both sides of this one, I guess, because in theory, you know, the player's name, if it's a star player, is worth more than $600. I get it, but like, how do you balance that? Like, all right, Caleb Williams, you get $1 million. Meanwhile, Ty Simpson, you get 600. It just doesn't work. You know,
out there on the roster.
It would be. I mean, if this was 5 years ago, even, you know, $600 would be, you know, the best thing ever. I mean, and obviously the NIL laws were what was keeping this game from existing for a while. So, you know, that's kind of a moot point. But yeah, I mean, if it was me, $600 is more than enough. I would do it for free because I just want to be in the video game. But I can understand the mindset of players that say like, oh, like only 600. I get it. I don't like it, but I at least get it. I think there's a lot of players who that's going to be fine for. Probably most players that they just want to be in the game. I mean,
I don't think the narrative is coming from the players. I think most of the players are exactly like you're saying. Get me in the game, and I just want to play with myself and my buddies. I want to just see, you know, these kinds of things. Your point is probably something that a lot of people aren't anticipating. You're Jalen Milroe. He's going to get his $600 check, but I promise you, Jalen Milroe and whoever else, who you want to go with. Not to, I mean, Archman, Jalen Miller, Quinn Ewers, and Carson Beck. Boom. Those three guys are getting a lot more than $600 because they're going to put some sort of something on their social medias, or they're going to be involved in some sort of commercial for the game. They're going to get a lot more. The faces, they're going to get a lot more than $600. But the backup offensive lineman that just got onto campus, that $600 check's going to be great for them to have their name in the game and them to play with their buddies.
Yeah, in the NIL era, I think $600 is mostly pennies on the dollar for most of these guys. But, and I hate to be in the NIL's ruining college football crowd, but, there's certainly been a shift in mindset over the last couple of years in terms of priorities and all that, keeping it very general. But, it's obvious the effect that NIL has had on college football. Take Isaiah Bond and his Lamborghini.
Are you going old school conservative on me? NIL is bad?
I don't think NIL is bad. I mean, I think NIL as a principle should exist and should have always existed. So I think there's almost no one who argues that at this point, but I don't think anyone else would argue that it's not a mess and it's not being used the way it was intended to be used. I mean, there need to be guidelines put on it.
It's being used exactly the way it was intended to be used.
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask there, but yes.
Ask Texas A&M. This is exactly what they wanted.
In an ideal world, in my mind, at least, there would be a revenue share and players would just get paid. Take the SEC TV contract is $700 million. If you took $30 million of that, each player would get $50,000 a year or whatever the number is. I mean, there needs to be let's cut the nonsense and just make the players employees. This is getting into
then you bite into the university model, my man.
Yeah, well, again,
this whole conversation is. I mean, we could go another hour on this exact topic because the NIL, the college athlete space. And are they employees? What are they worth? This, that, and the other. Who's paying them, whether it be the TV contracts or whether it be outside entities? This is in my uneducated opinion, has been the biggest problem with college as a whole. Like when my parents were in college, went to the University of Georgia, they were paying like $500 a semester. It's a whole lot more now because I can just go to the government and get myself a lot. No one's paying for it. Colleges are just jacking up the price. We're not paying for these athletes. No, we're going to take the money from the TV. We're going to take the money from the TV guys, and we'll let Piggly Wiggly pay for these guys, and we'll let Don's Auto Shop pay for those guys. But we ain't pay. It's all the higher education scam. It's just a multiple level scam and scam may not be the right word. I'm sorry, but a multiple level scheme to.
That's not much better. That's not something I push back on at all. Obviously, I think most people are aware of that. But at this point in 2024, to call these athletes amateur, amateurism is dead. I think everyone knows that. So, my thoughts would be to just kind of cut the nonsense and just make the players employees, and it would be a lot easier that way. But we're in an era of transition. I think everyone knows that. And we'll see what product comes out on the other side a few years from now.
Michael Brauner, everybody. Follow him at M. Brauner, WNSP. Listen to him every single day, 105.5 in Mobile, on the Sound of Mobile app. What y'all been doing in Mobile? Have y'all recovered from the Senior Bowl?
Just about. Obviously, it's probably the most hectic week of the year. We're in that weird period, and now it's obvious. And it would have been different a few years ago without both basketball teams in the state, frankly, competing for an SEC championship and going to be high seeds in the tournament. But you know how it is. It's that weird post-football season lull where everyone wants to talk about spring football. I want to talk about spring football. I'm excited for it to come along. But obviously, the way the basketball team has been over the last few years has presented a nice tide you over period, no pun intended, to get you to that football season and to the summer. But, we're excited about it.
Are you going to a SEC tournament in Nashville?
TBD.
Okay,
TBD. Right.
We'll circle back on that. All our listeners will wait with bated breath as they want to hear if Michael Brauner makes it to Mobile. Michael, have a great rest of your day, man. We knocked this out early on my timeline, so I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Anything else you want to? We need to talk about? Anything we haven't caught up on?
Well, we're there's not a whole lot of football to discuss at the moment.
Football? Well, do you miss me?
Of course.
All right. Making sure there's nothing on our radar that we need to chat about.
No, you're doing a phenomenal job. I listen to your show pretty often. I'm always happy to come on and
all right.
Literally anytime.
Well, Michael, you're the man. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Make sure you go follow Michael Brauner at mbrauner WNSP. And please, when you're not listening to the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, you're downloading the Sound of Mobile sports app, and you're listening to those guys down there. They're going to get you all kinds of Ryan Williams information between now and May 28th when he enrolls. And we're going to stay all up on the basketball, baseball, spring football, and we'll see if Michael makes it to Nashville. We'll catch up hopefully around that time, SEC tournament time. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Yes, sir. That's Michael Brauner joining us today, and we had a great day. It was a blast. We appreciate Hunter Johnson joining us yesterday on the program, talking about Alabama basketball and football, a little bit of baseball there. We talked a lot with Michael about Eli Gold, about Alabama basketball's big win, 98-93 over the Florida Gators in overtime, and a little bit about EA Sports, $600 to get into the game. I'm taking it. I'm signing up if I'm an Alabama football player, whether I'm a Jalen Milroe type or a backup left-end long snapper type. I'm absolutely hopping in that game. $600 is absolutely A-okay for me as a college athlete. All right, so we appreciate everybody's time watching the program each and every day, listening to it each and every day. You watched it on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media machines, and at BamaCentral on the YouTube channel. You listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You subscribe, rate, and review the show with 5 stars and told a friend, and you're ready for tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow we'll talk about Alabama and Kentucky. We'll hit some recruiting news. There's been a couple of little tidbits on recruiting, and we'll see. Look, the news cycle never stops. We'll see where it goes tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.